Before anything else, I would like to introduce my guest today. So as you know, I invited Nicole to be part of our Q&A today because I think it's important for you guys to know other people who are also selling on Amazon who's really doing well for you to get inspired, and at least we can pick her brain to see what she can what she's been doing that's making her so successful, right? So Nicole here has been selling for a long time as well, just like me, and she's doing wholesale and arbitrage, and I'm not gonna go through all the details. I'm gonna ask Nicole directly to introduce herself. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everybody. Hi, Monique. Hi, Sobia. As Cheryl mentioned, my name is Nicole Rice. I have been an Amazon seller for a little over 4 years. I started in December of 2019. And when I first started my journey, kind of probably similar to a lot of other people that you've had here speak, I was starting to dabble in doing Amazon, buying in Canada, selling in Canada. And when I first initially had started, I was telling Cheryl earlier that I started with $2,000, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of a risk. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to invest in some products and see if it works. And prior to starting and doing that initial sell on Amazon, I actually was inspired by a couple of friends who at the time were 7-figure sellers, and I had watched them for a few months prior, and I was like, you know what, this doesn't seem too difficult. I can probably do it. So I decided to jump in, take that $2,000 investment. At the time I had bought some speakers, and I shipped them into Amazon. They immediately sold. My mind was blown. I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, let's try again. Then we're going to keep buying the next product, the next product, the next product. And so, 4 and a bit years later, here I am, still selling on Amazon. And as Cheryl mentioned, I'm doing mostly arbitrage and wholesale in Canada and the US. So I buy in Canada, sell in the US, buy in Canada, sell in Canada, and then vice versa, buy in the US and import into Canada as well. I kind of do a mix of both. I would say majority of my experience selling on Amazon is about 70% arbitrage, 30% wholesale. That's what I'm focusing on.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for your detailed introduction. So at least we know, Nicole, that she's actually more on arbitrage as well. So this course is actually for beginners arbitrage. So we're gonna learn a lot from Nicole tonight. Like Nicole, before doing Amazon, what were you doing? Actually, like, do you work full time now? If you're doing full time, like, what is your job? Because maybe people would be interested to know if you really have a background in, like, computer or anything, because you're so good at it.
Sure. No, it's a good question. So I do currently work full time. Amazon is kind of my part-time hobby and little baby that one day I would like to grow into doing full time. But my full-time job, I work as an HR director for an oil and gas services company. So as you might expect, it's a pretty demanding job. I work, on average 10 hours a day. So, in my free time that I do have after work, I spend a lot of time doing Amazon. And learning the tools, watching podcasts, reading different posts on the internet, sourcing products. And so in terms of some of the skills, I guess, from my job, I mean, a lot of what I do in my day-to-day job is coaching people, listening to people, building relationships. And so when I first started my Amazon journey, I quickly learned that success in Amazon and learning how to do Amazon was really based on relationships, because similar to, Cheryl, what we kind of talked about before, right, is when you start to YouTube and when you start to Google things or go on Instagram, you see a lot of courses, a lot of material that is more so US focused and is not always relevant to us as Canadian sellers. And so at the time I was like, okay, well, how can I start to leverage relationships? So, when you start to read and scour different Facebook groups, you notice people who comment, you notice people who actively participate, I started reaching out, introducing myself, asking them questions, building a relationship, really just being like more inquisitive rather than, asking for something. I was more just learning about them and their journey and how they got there. And then through that really helped me build kind of my skills, my network, the people that I know, and help me really excel my Amazon kind of journey of where I've got to today.
Okay, so you having said that you are really working hard also on your full-time business. So I'm curious of how many hours a week do you usually spend on Amazon? Like, what's your maybe routine like for your Amazon business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for my day-to-day job, I start very early in the morning. So I'm up every day at 5. I start work at 6 o'clock. I work until about like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I have a couple of hours to do some personal things. And then usually each evening I dedicate, and I would say an hour to 2 hours every night of just doing, kind of just general business related activities, whether it's like bookkeeping activities, sourcing, doing import documents with cross-border pickups, ordering things from my wholesalers or suppliers. It just depends on what I have to do in that given day. But the one thing that I will say that is critical to success in doing Amazon is consistency. So building yourself a manageable routine. And we all know that, the one thing that we typically lack in life is time. We always want more time to be able to do things. And so being very diligent, being very structured with your time is really, really important to success. So, I tend to do, let's say, 3 to 5 days per week of at least 2 hours of Amazon every single day.
So that's all you do you work on weekends?
I do. Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
Yeah. If I have some free time, and usually because I'm up so early, like for my regular job on the weekends, I tend to get up a little bit earlier before my stepkids, before my partner, and everyone's kind of still sleeping, so it's quiet in the house. I have a few hours to myself to do sourcing and some of the other things I need to do for my business. Yeah. So,
Wow. So
whatever works for you, right? Finding the time, some
yes.
people are people who are night owls and they stay up really late and they can do sourcing into the wee hours of the night. That's not me. I'd rather get up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning and do it for a few hours on the weekend.
Yeah, and do you have a VA? I'm curious if you have anybody who's helping you run this business, or you're a solopreneur where you do everything on your own.
So I do not have a virtual assistant yet. It is one of my goals in 2024 is to get a virtual assistant to do a little bit more help on the sourcing front. So what I will say is that, so I'm a solopreneur. I do basically everything, but I utilize my network. I utilize the resources that are available to me outside of a virtual assistant. So, using prep centers, using services that can deal with your Amazon returns, having a good bookkeeper, an accountant, utilizing a repricer, all of those different strategies to help automate as much of the business as you can really helps to free up your time so that you can spend the precious time that you do have on the activities that really drive value in your business.
That's amazing. And I think that's a good advice for people who want to last long in this business and to really and to see that there's more, like you can actually make so much of your time by just setting as like scheduling it properly, right? And with you, Nicole, did you do prep center right off the bat, or you did some prepping before? Like, did you do it right away?
No, I did not. So I learned the hard way. And what I will say, in retrospect and looking back, is I was a little bit resistant to change when it came to using a prep center, right? Because, when you start doing Amazon, doing the prep, buying the products, where the products come from, right? You feel like is proprietary to you. You don't want to give up that knowledge or information to a prep center, create more competition. But what I will say is, like, you're only one person, you only have so much time, and you can't do every single thing. And so, you have to be able to relinquish control, take risks. And, in retrospect, as I think back, I should have used a prep center way sooner than I did. It was about a year and a half into my Amazon journey that I started using a prep center, and I wish I had done it from day one, because it definitely is a very value added service that I highly recommend to everybody to do.
Yeah, I think you don't realize that until you're doing it, right? Because it was also for me. I think because we are very detailed oriented, that it's so hard for us to give tasks to a lot of it. That's one of my downside as well. Like it's hard for me to give tasks to other people because I feel like I'm the only one who can do it better. And one of them is prepping, and it was hard. But when I hired a prep center, that's when I realized, like, wow, it really opens up a lot of my time, and I can do so much more, and I can move around because I don't need to worry about all these things, right? Like you let go of like because with me, I actually hired part-time employee before, so it was like, I don't need to worry about other people anymore. It's just about me, right? So prep center definitely is a yes.
I agree. I agree. And I think one piece of advice too for other people that are considering using a prep center is, if you have some reservations, reach out to people or other Amazon sellers who do use prep centers, and get some recommendations from them on different ones that you could use in Canada and the US. Maybe ask them what kinds of questions you should ask if you're considering using a new prep center, maybe that many people don't utilize today, because, being new and somebody who doesn't know the service or the value that they provide, you don't know the questions you should ask or the pain points that can come from using a prep center. So like I talked about at the beginning, utilizing your network and other sellers to get that advice is really important.
Yes. So now the big question is, how much sales do you get every month from working like very minimal amount every week? And if you are comfortable, how much profit do you get from this?
Sure. No, that's a good question. So my average monthly sales are around 70,000 per month. And my profit sits anywhere after all expenses, fees, shipping, all of that type of stuff is between 15 to 20%.
Wow, that's amazing, right? So where can you find that, right? Like, where can you find an opportunity where you can start small, start with small amount of money as well, not like a big box store or like a typical store where you need to hire people, you need to have rent and everything. So for us, I think Amazon selling is actually a big opportunity that you can leverage if you are a small time business, or if you want to start from home. You can start small. Look at Nicole, from $2,000 all the way to 70,000 K in sales with 15 to 20% profit, right? So that's amazing. So that's the reason why I actually invite Nicole tonight, because I want people to know your story. So I never met Nicole, but I heard a lot about her as well from other people, and I want her to share her story to us, just to inspire you guys that there's so much that you can make out of this business. You think it's because like it's work from home, you can't do anything, but actually sky is the limit, right? Sky is the limit for this business. So
Agreed.
before
And Cheryl, when I started actually doing Amazon too, I was actually still working full time and going into the office every day. Only recently have I started working from home, where it allows me a little more flexibility. But even, when you have to go into an office 8 to 10 hours a day, that schedule and that structure is really important to be able to dedicate the right amount of time to making the business grow.
Yeah. So before anything else, I'd like to ask people. So if you guys have questions for Nicole, feel free to type it in the comment section or in the chat box so that we can ask her. I'm gonna try to see, like, I know that I have few questions for you from my students, and I'm gonna go through that. But last one before I ask, I read their questions. So I want to ask you, what made you decide to do this Amazon? Like, you already have a full-time job, and yet you decide to still do it and try it. Do you think arbitrage is dead? Because a lot of people say like, oh, don't do arbitrage anymore, it's dead. Amazon is actually a scam, like nobody makes money out of it and stuff like that. What would you say on that?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So to answer the first part of your question around the motivation as to why I started doing Amazon. So this will be a little bit longer of a response, but I'll really tell you kind of my more intrinsic motivation as to why I did it. So I have been in the human resources field for 20 years, and part of working in HR and some of the things that you have to do are not always super fun. And at times there are periods where companies can hire a lot of people and times are good. And then there are times where recessions hit, downturns hit, and as an HR professional, you have to let people go. And unfortunately, in the course of my career, I've had to let a number of people go for various reasons. And I've seen a lot of the emotional changes that happen with people when you change the livelihood of their ability to make money. And a lot of times those are extremely sad, right? And and at that point in time, my job as an HR professional is to protect the interests of the company while balancing the interests of individuals. But at the same time, a lot of times those people can't always go and find another comparable job. And so when I saw my life down the road, I never wanted to be in a position where I had, I will say, a single point of failure and from a monetary perspective. And so I always wanted to have something else that would supplement my day-to-day income so that if I ever found myself in that position, I would not be fully reliant on the money that I made from that job. And that was really kind of the motivation behind why I started to do Amazon. And I had a few other ventures before I got to do Amazon selling. I started my very first company that I started, I was doing immigration consulting. So I'm a certified immigration consultant in Canada. I did it for a couple of years, but what I found is that it was extremely time consuming at the same time when I had to be working full time. And so it just wasn't feasible to be able to grow that business to the point of not doing HR anymore. So I said, okay, I'm going to decide to do HR and I'm going to put that dream to bed. And then I started doing Amazon. And Amazon, obviously, there's a lot more time and freedom to be able to do that on your own schedule where you're maybe not necessarily interacting with people all the time. So that was kind of the journey that I followed. And then I started doing Amazon. It turned out to be really, really great, a supplement to what I was doing. And so I've continued to do it. To answer your question about whether or not I think arbitrage is dead, no, I do not think arbitrage is dead, as I am a living, breathing example that a thriving arbitrage seller can still exist in today's market. But what I will say is that obviously, with a lot of interest that Amazon and other marketplace platforms like Best Buy, Walmart, eBay have gained in terms of traction, there's a lot more competition in terms of arbitrage selling. And so, it's really important to be able to find your niche when it comes to Amazon. And what I will say in terms of my own journey of arbitrage is, I started, like a lot of other people, sourcing things at Costco. I was sharing with Cheryl earlier that, one of my biggest products that hit right when I started selling on Amazon was Kraft Dinner cheese powder that I sourced at Costco, and I was selling it for a huge profit back in 2020. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And if I look at that same product today to sell it, it's not nearly as profitable anymore, obviously, because just circumstances have changed. So as that product has changed, so is my selling strategy. So today, my strategy for arbitrage tends to focus on higher priced products that have a higher barrier to entry, which means then there's less competition for selling them, but it also comes with other risks, right? Higher priced products comes higher prices that a consumer pays, higher risk in terms of returns. So there's always going to be risk in terms of doing Amazon, and especially arbitrage, right? Because we never know, Amazon can come on the listing. We never know how many sellers are going to jump on, how many other people find the same product. So, being able to be creative and find your niche in the arbitrage world is really important.
Wow, that's a very good advice. Because I also found so for me, I also like do a lot of niching on different strategy for my Amazon selling, and I think we're very different. So with me, I'm so scared to sell, even if I have several ASINs that's really high profit. I tend to be very scared. And I guess because now I'm also traveling full time, so I don't want to deal with returns. But with you, your strategy is actually high profit, but high cost product, right? So I think those kind of products would be more better for people who have more experience, because at least you know exactly how to read the data, right? Because everything is
Yes.
based on data. So make sure, if you want to try this kind of, as Nicole said, there's a lot of risk to take on this one. So make sure that you know what you're doing before entering in this kind of strategy, right? Just to
Absolutely.
caution people, because because I know returns can hit hard on your profit in the day if it's high selling, but the money that you will make is high as well, right? So one of
Exactly.
my best, yeah, one of my best selling, I make like around like $100 to $200 per piece, right? Which is
Hmm.
you just sell how many a month, and you have like 10 times 200 is 2000 already, right?
Hmm.
So having said that, I want to ask you several questions from my students, because I actually posted before that you are going in. They didn't know though that you are an experienced, really experienced seller. So unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to tell them that right away. So
That's okay.
I have few questions here. So they say, let's read on the questions. So, uh, what do you think about the prospect of this RAOA business? Do you think this business model is sustainable? During my short period of RAOA experience, it happened several times that the buyback was suppressed by Amazon because it found more competitive prices outside Amazon, or the price of the product dropped dramatically and is not profitable anymore right after you spend huge amount of time and finally find something to ship and sell. So do you think it's sustainable? So basically he got burned with, few items and asking if it's still sustainable. So you can ask this question easily because you've been doing this for years.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. No, and I absolutely do think it is a sustainable business, like I just mentioned in my last response. I think the one thing that you can probably take away from, maybe your experience with buying products and having a suppressed listing, or other sellers coming on selling it with a much lower price is, it really all fundamentally comes back to your ability to utilize the different tools that are available for Amazon sellers. So understanding how to read a Keepa chart, knowing how to use tactical arbitrage, playing around with different reports, knowing how to use the sourcing function on Keepa. All of those things are really, really critical to your success as an Amazon seller. So while sourcing is a big part of it, you can't be successful at sourcing without understanding the tools that you're going to use.
So with you, you use a lot of tactical arbitrage. I personally don't use it. It didn't work out for me. So, but
Mhm.
I'm happy to know that you are doing really well on tactical arbitrage. So that's interesting revelation for me, because I did not know that you are actually using tactical arbitrage. Do you use it for both US and Canada?
I do use it, yes, for both the US and Canada. I also use it to run my wholesale reports that I get from my suppliers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, so you
I
use
also
it
use
more
Keep.
for.
I also use Keepa quite a bit also as well. Not just the chart, but
Mm-hmm.
the functionality within Keepa where you can add
Yeah.
in different like UPC lists and look for, and you can sort and filter it by different ways based on like seller rank, volume per month, price, all of
Mm-hmm.
those things.
Mm-hmm.
So under really taking a deep dive to understand those tools
Mm-hmm.
is important.
Okay, so you're really using also different ways on how to figure out if a product actually sells or not, right? So there's
Correct.
another question here. It says there are always order limits either online or in store, which allow you to buy a limited number of items. For testing purchases, it's okay, but I think it's almost impossible if you want to scale the business by doing this. How did you handle any and move your business to the next level? So basically, they're asking like, what did you do with the limitation of arbitrage? You know that it's not big volume. Is it is that the reason why you also combine it with wholesale,
Mhm.
or you just do you have any other strategy on finding these products available all the time?
So, I mean, but that's so to answer the question, I mean, that's part of the challenge with arbitrage, right? Is you're always looking for the bigger, better product every single time, and whoever is a seller that gets the most product makes the most money. So it's a reality of the situation when it comes to doing retail art or online and retail arbitrage. But what I will say, and I'll give an example, right? Like, I'm sure we've all gone to Shoppers Drug Mart and looked for products, right? When they have 20 times the points or whatever promotion that they have on to resell on Amazon. And we all know that there's a unit limit each time that you want to buy a product. So, there's a lot of different strategies that you can employ. You can have multiple emails, multiple accounts with, partners at home, children, so there's ways to maximize or get around those inventory limits. Yes, it's more of a pain, but there's an element of creativity to it. There's also, if you do find a really profitable product, start Googling distributors, wholesalers, reaching out to them, seeing if there's a way that you can find a wholesaler or distributor that can provide you with greater volumes. And 9 times out of 10, depending on how diligent you are in Google and how committed you are to finding that wholesaler, you can usually find someone that would be willing to sell to an online e-commerce seller.
Okay, so thank you for that. Another question here is that what have been the most instrumental pivot that you made in your business up to this point?
Good question. I would say that probably the biggest impact in my business was when I shifted from doing Canada to Canada selling, when the inventory restrictions came into place during the pandemic in 2021, and shifting my business to sell in the US. And I know you probably hear that from a lot of other sellers when they expand outside of Canada and they go into other marketplaces. It really helped to grow their business. But their population is 10 times the size of Canada. And so the volume is there. And obviously there's more competition, but it really changed the trajectory of my business. And so while at the time, I was of a negative mindset with all of these inventory restrictions that came into place, but in retrospect, it was actually the best thing that I could have done.
Yeah, that's why I always say that there's always a silver lining in any situation. So a lot of people, if you don't have the proper mindset, you will actually just quit and stop. But if you have the mindset of an entrepreneur, you will pivot and see this as an opportunity. So if you gave up that time, you're done, right? But because you have a different mindset of, instead of thinking, okay, Amazon won't allow me to sell, that's it. Instead of that, you say like, why can't I sell in the US? Maybe that's a good way. While I can't sell in Canada, maybe it's a good way to start the US as well, right? So I guess that's what me, you and David, like, that's the reason why we're still here and we're doing very well, is because during the time that we were hit with a lot of issue during the pandemic, we really break through it and move to a different way of making money, right? And that's a very important lesson that I think a lot of beginners needs to know, that just because you're having a hard time now doesn't mean that things won't work out. The reason why it's happening to you is because there's a new window that needs to be open for better opportunities, right? So
absolutely, being resilient is really important in terms of finding success in doing Amazon.
Yeah. So who has been the most influential person in your life to take you each time to the next level? So do you have people you follow on the internet that you always listen to, podcasts, anything like that?
I would say that probably I'm personally a very driven person. So when I set my mind to something, I'm very determined to succeed. And so, whenever I would experience a hiccup or a challenge, I would really utilize the network of people that I had built over the years that I had doing Amazon to get perspective on how to deal with that specific situation. I would say, like at the beginning, yes, I watched YouTube videos. Yes, I, followed different people on Instagram or on Facebook. But I wouldn't say that those were necessarily my motivation. When I found that I had more insurmountable challenges that I didn't know how to deal with, I had signed up for coaching. And so I do recommend that, everybody do get a coach, because there are definitely some big pitfalls you can avoid right off the bat when you start your Amazon journey by getting a coach. And it really sets your trajectory for success early on at that foundational stage, rather than you having to learn and kind of fumble through some of those challenges at the beginning. But the coaches that I have had and have paid for have been extremely helpful and still are helpful today, because I do still have a coach.
Okay, I want to ask you, how many courses or coaches or mastermind have you signed up all throughout the year? I'm curious about that because I do the same, right? Like up to now, I buy courses and stuff like that. So how much do you think you spend money already for like trying to get better and better each time?
I would say that over the course of my Amazon journey over 4 years, I've signed up for three different like coaching kind of mastermind programs that all had varying lengths of like how long I was enrolled. The first couple were a year. This last one is kind of ongoing for as long as I need help and support. But in terms of masterminds, I only did them a couple times. You know, I don't know. I was able to pick things up really quickly, so I maybe didn't necessarily see the need for me as an individual to continue to do them. But again, those masterminds and those coaching groups and the Facebook groups, I mean, the biggest value that you all get out of them is the relationships that you form through those sessions.
Yeah. So I think it's very important to know that if you really wanna be better in any, even in anything, not just Amazon selling, I think if you want to fast track your growth, either take a course or hire somebody to help you go through it faster, right? Because yes, it's okay to watch YouTube videos and everything like that, but you know that it's gonna be slower, right? So with me, I never hired a coach in the beginning. I just took a course because I cannot afford it, but
Mm-hmm.
it took me a while before I get better with my sales. And if I have the choice, I would actually hire somebody to teach me one-on-one, because I now as a coach as well, I realize like, wow, like I give everything I know to that person, and for a small amount that they can make money easily with, even just in a month of selling, if you really take actions, right? Actions is the key to making it work in this business.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Coaches are extremely valuable, and I would continue to get coaches as my Amazon journey continues in my career with doing it.
And I think that's the reason why you keep on getting better and better. And imagine that you only work for a short period of time, and yet you're making this much money every month. That's amazing. And where can you find that kind of business, right? I think in this modern world, I think online space is really the way to go. So if you guys are learning this business, I think, so for me, my takeaway that, and I am discovering so many things just being an Amazon seller and as a coach as well, that I think it's important for us even to give this knowledge to our kids. I think with me personally, I do homeschooling, and I'm already introducing all of this to my kids because this is the way to go. Like if they know it at a young age, they know this already, it means that they're going to be far better than their similar age when they grow up, because they learn so much from you, right? And for us, because we discovered this opportunity, I think we can, by action, kids seeing us working through online and making money online, they're picking it up unconsciously, right? So that's the best gift I think that we can even give to our kids, knowing that we can make money online and that they can do it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's amazing. So anyways, there's more questions here. I have here another question. How, when, and you get started with Amazon? We know that already. Did you take any course along? We had it already. Do you have a coach mentor at this point in time? So yep. Is it one-on-one or in a group setting? What do you have right now? I know you did a lot of master group also. You did group, but right now, do you have again a one-on-one coach?
Yeah, so the person that I do coaching with does group sessions. There's a large amount of people in the group that span between
Mm-hmm.
US and Canada, and it's actually some that are international as well. And then there's always the opportunity for one-on-one coaching, whether it's a call, a group message, chat,
Mm-hmm.
emails, whichever. So yeah, the person is available regularly when you have a question or concern.
Yeah, and you mentioned too that you have sort of like a core group of different sellers that you become friends with along the way, that you guys like
Yes.
talk to each other. Do you do it every month or something like that just to share your ideas?
I would say when I more so kind of early on in my Amazon journey after the
Mm-hmm.
first group where I met the majority of them, we did have kind of like regular cadences where we'd meet like every week and we'd do sourcing together, share strategies, talk about challenges. But then just as, life goes on, you get more experienced, your journeys
Mm-hmm.
kind of go in different directions. We don't necessarily have regular touch points as a group, but we all stay connected on social media. We
Mm-hmm.
send messages on Messenger, or talk on the phone the odd time, but it's just not as consistent as it once was, maybe earlier on.
Yeah. Would you say that that helped you to stay, uh, motivated and do Amazon like continuously because of that core group that you formed?
Yes, I'm a very competitive individual. And so, when, I think you all have met Dave Fernandez, me and him talk pretty regularly about our Amazon
Yeah.
journeys. And, we keep tabs on how each other are doing, and we have some friendly banter that goes on, who's doing better in what space. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think, it is important, just like it is in your regular job, to
Mm-hmm.
find what I'll call like a best friend at work or an Amazon best friend, somebody who can continually motivate you, share ideas,
Mm-hmm.
challenge you in different ways, I do think is really important.
Okay. So thank you for that. Wow. So we're learning so much from Nicole right now. So if you have, okay, so I still have I still have some minutes to ask you more questions while
Yeah,
waiting
sure, of course.
for others. So if you are going to give an advice to new sellers right now, like what would it be? Like the best advice you can give to them?
The best advice I can give is when you're first starting out, learn your tools. Learn Keepa, learn how to use tactical arbitrage, run reports, use the different metrics and criteria. Look and spend the time doing the sourcing with the data. The more that you are hands-on in the business, the more that you do things from start to finish, the more you ask questions, the more your knowledge is really going to grow. But you're only going to be as good as the amount of time that you put into it. So you have to invest the time up front to learn, to ask questions, and then to go and execute, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And don't be
So
afraid. And don't be afraid after, you feel like you've done the time or put in the time to learn those tools and resources, to automate early on, and don't give up. Because there's always going to be challenges, even I would say as a more experienced seller. I mean, we have challenges all the time for selling on Amazon. You all would have seen we have inventory placement fees now. We have storage fees that come in before 365 days. Like there's a lot of things that we have to deal with in terms of increased costs. FBA fees go up, right? So your strategy for finding products always has to evolve and change. And so, it's not always as easy as saying, okay, well, I'm going to go find a product now that has 50% ROI. If we could have found those at the very beginning, we would have done that. But obviously it comes with a little bit more challenging times. So making sure that you understand how to source and the tools to use is going to be very impactful for your success on Amazon.
So I realize that you are using so much of tactical arbitrage. I hope someday you can say yes to my request of teaching, others to do that as well. Like that's amazing because I never had I don't know, it didn't click on me. And as you know, like with finding products, it all depends on what clicks on you, right? That's the reason why for my students personally, I give them different tools, like show them different tools, and then you decide what you
Mhm.
like to use. And for you, do you use mainly just tactical arbitrage and Keepa? Do you have any other tools that you're using that you can maybe impart to us?
Yeah, no, the two main tools I use Seller Assistant, which is like a Chrome add-in. I use
Mm-hmm.
Tactical Arbitrage and Keepa.
Okay, so good to know. See, that's the reason why I think it's important for us to learn to so many different people as well. So if you are very serious in this business, go for other coaches as well, right? I firmly believe that it's not just for one. So for example, you're learning from me, but I have my own ways. Nicole will have her own ways. Lace will have her own ways of doing things. And I think the more knowledge you have in getting better with your product sourcing, the better, because that's bread and butter basically of this business, right?
Mhm.
Um, Okay,
The one
so
other, sorry, Cheryl, I'm going to give
yeah.
one other piece of advice now that I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it. As a new seller, the one other thing I would give as a piece of advice is take the time to understand how you are profitable being an Amazon seller and understanding all of the fees that you pay, how much ROI you should be looking for on products, just understanding your books and understanding how to maximize cash flow is going to be extremely important to your long-term longevity and success as a seller. Because if you don't understand how you make profit or what costs come off of the profit outside of, just saying, okay, I'm buying this for $40 and I'm selling it for 20, so I make a $20 profit. But in reality, that's not really true after you start allocating a lot of other expenses on top of that. So really understanding the numbers is also extremely important.
It's very true. And would you recommend, like, what do you use personally to do all these things? Like, in terms of bookkeeping, like, do you just use spreadsheets or anything like that to be able to know exactly how much
Yes.
you're making every month?
Yeah, so I use spreadsheets to track all my profitability for my products and what I buy. I also obviously use QuickBooks just to keep track of all my COGS. I do have a bookkeeper as well that does some reporting for me on a quarterly basis from a profitability perspective. Yeah, so those
Mm-hmm.
things are all really important as well.
Okay, so that's a really good advice because a lot of times, like people get frustrated, and I think a lot of people also say that, oh, Amazon is a scam because they really don't understand their books, right? Like, and then at the end of the day, they would see that, oh, I'm actually not making profit because they don't know how to calculate profit properly, and
Mhm.
then they thought that they're making money, and then they didn't really, and then they get frustrated, and also I think one of the reasons why a lot of people think, Amazon is a scam because they started with harder strategy, which is like private label, and private
Mhm.
label usually takes time and effort and money for you to be able to break through. And because of those bad experience, they think that, oh, arbitrage won't work, or anything Amazon selling doesn't really make money, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think at the end of the day, that's what it is. Okay, so in your opinion, what is the key to your success?
That's a good question. I would say probably consistency is the biggest key to my success. So because I've been doing Amazon for a number of years, I've obviously sold a lot of different products, and I'm sure Cheryl, you can attest to this too, is that once you become really good at sourcing, you can tend to find products that I will call replenishable products and ones that you can just consistently buy over and over and over again. And so I've gotten to a point now in my Amazon journey where, I keep track in my spreadsheet of what I would consider all replenishable products. I mean, I go in and check the listings every so often, but I just continually rebuy them on a regular cadence, like every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, however much I need to sell of that specific item. So it makes the sourcing part of being an Amazon seller very, very easy, which is really nice.
Yes. Yeah, like that's actually one of the best part, right? Like once you find all this product easily. So I always even say that once you get past through the hardship of learning on how to do product research, the main I think the main issue as a seller is already like cash flow, right? Like how to
Mhm.
find all those money with so many products, because I get into the point that when I go, before I used to do a lot of RA, when I look at the product, I know that probably that will be selling well on Amazon. I
Mhm.
have that intuition already because I sell a lot, that I know which one would sell like really well, right? Because you notice the pattern like as you go through so much. I think that's the reason why it's also important for you to try as much different ways of sourcing for you to figure out things on your own and build your own system, right? Of
Absolutely.
finding products. So, what are your goals in your business for this year? Like, do you plan to do private label, or you're okay already with it? Are you gonna like move on to wholesale completely, or do you still love arbitrage, that this is probably your, you know, your strategy all throughout?
So that's a good question. So like I mentioned, my current model is about 70% arbitrage, 30% wholesale, with most of the wholesale that I do being sold in the US. So my goals for 2024 is to break 100K a month. And my plan in order to do that is to look to dedicate more time to sourcing. Because honestly, just where I'm at now, I'm at a little bit of a plateau. And I know in order to break that plateau, I have to invest a little bit more time in order to get to the mark that I want to get to. So that's kind of my short-term growth strategy of where I want to be by the end of the year, is try to have consistent 100K months, explore a little bit more some of the suppliers that I have through my wholesale accounts, spend some more time sourcing, hence hiring the virtual assistant to help me with and to automate some of the more administrative elements of doing sourcing. So that's kind of my growth strategy for this year.
So with you, what do you think you did in particular that made you go from, being a newbie with just this amount of sales every month to pushing it to the next level? So what would you say is the best, like, main things that you did, major things you did in your Amazon business that made you go into the different level?
I would say the biggest one was selling in the US. The second biggest one was getting a prep center, because a lot of the bottleneck that I faced as a newer seller, or a more green seller, as I'll call it, was my time was spent doing things that were not maybe necessarily the best use of my time. So the money that I would pay to a prep center to prep the products was valuable enough to be able to free up my time so that I could spend more time sourcing products to make more money. Because you always want to keep turning that wheel, right? And so if you're spending time packing the inventory, you're not spending the time sourcing the products, which is really where you're going to be driving most of your value and profitability from.
Okay,
That was
so
yeah.
Talking about prep center, you said that's one of the major one that really help you. Would you say when do you think, like, for example, if I just started Amazon now, do you think I should do prep center right away, or do you think prep center can be converted after 6 months or a year? What's your take on this? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so I started using a prep center around the 1.5 to 2 year mark. And I wish I had done it sooner, around the 6 month to 12 month mark, because I think I would have been a lot farther along in my Amazon journey and probably at 100K a month already had I done it much sooner in my journey. I do think that there is benefit in doing the prep and understanding the systems within Seller Central yourself at the very beginning, because you're not going to be able to figure out issues with a prep center if you don't understand the fundamental mechanics of how Seller Central works, or how to create a shipment, send to Amazon, how to track packages, all that type of stuff. If you haven't done it yourself already. So there is value in doing it, but don't spend too much time doing it. Again, part of being a new seller and really wanting to expedite and grow is to relinquish control and utilize the things that you can outsource. So, do it for a little bit, but at a point, I think it is very beneficial to hire a prep center.
How do you deal with returns? Like, one of the question here is, how do you deal with returns? I'm running out of time with you. I only have 10 minutes, so I'll ask you whatever question
that's a good question.
They have.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So Amazon returns, I'm going to say, were specifically in the US, were a pain in my side for actually a very, very long time. Because when I was doing and selling in the US, as I am now, when I lived in Alberta, I was using a cross-border company called DYK. And so they would send all of their they would ship over all of my products to the Amazon FBA warehouse, this DYK cross-border company. But in the US, in Montana, they would have a Montana mailbox where I would get all of my returns sent back to, and then that company, DYK, would have to bring them back across the border into Alberta. And so there is an exponential amount of fees that would be associated with me having to bring the inventory and cross it back over into Canada. And at that point, I would not be able to inspect the inventory, know what condition it's in, decide whether or not it's worth it to pay the import fee to bring them back across. And so I eventually, from my coach, actually connected with a gentleman who used to work for one of the larger FBM sellers in Canada, Shopville, that's based out of Alberta. And this gentleman owns a returns company called Consolidated Returns out of New York. And so he actually handles all of my returns. So everything that I sell in the US gets sent to him. He inspects it, he looks at it, he files cases with Amazon if things are broken or missing or damaged. And for anything that is still considered in new or used like new condition, we create shipments to send that inventory back into Amazon. For anything that I sell in Canada, so for example, if I buy something in the US, import it through CBP and sell it in FBA Canada, those get shipped back to my house. And then I've learned to be very strategic with how I file cases with Amazon to receive reimbursement. So, just learning language, what to say, how to explain what is wrong with a specific item. And then what I tend to do with those is I will either donate them or I'll sell them on like local platforms like Facebook Marketplace and things like that.
Yeah. So that's one thing. I think returns is one of the main issues for Amazon, but if you know the proper way of doing it, then it's okay. So it depends on the person, right? Some people, they don't really like to deal with returns. Some are patient with it. So it depends on the character. But I think if you find the system that will easily do this, then it will get better, right? And
It
that's
will.
part of
It's kind of par for the course. It's just something that's going to be a
yes.
reality of business as you're an Amazon seller. Even think about yourself as a consumer, right? You buy something and then you're like, oh, I don't need this anymore. I'm going to send it back to Amazon. And so people that buy from you are no different. And sometimes, yes, there are, bad seeds that send back bad products. And that's just a reality of the business, right? So that resiliency that I talked about earlier is really important. You just have to kind of go
Yep.
with the flow because the positives outweigh the negatives.
Yep, like just exactly the same as when you are doing a brick and mortar store, they also receive a lot of returns, right? Okay, so I think Meklit asked what software do you use besides Keepa? She already said tactical arbitrage. So Chantel, tactical arbitrage is basically another software to scan through, but I think you need to go deep in order for you to really find profitable product, because I tried it before, and if you don't do those expats, I think like it's harder to compete with a lot of people finding the same products, right? So you need to go deep dive into tactical arbitrage to learn the software really well before investing on it. I don't know, is tactical arbitrage still have like the limit of how much you can just look in a day or something like that? I know the last time I used it, they turn it into like that.
Yeah, so they did have a plan where you were allocated a certain number of minutes based on how much your subscription was every month, but they've actually just recently taken that away.
Oh, good. So that's good, because I feel like, because I know that tactical arbitrage is not cheap, it's expensive, but yeah, so that's good to know. Okay, so last one questions before we end. Last word that you can say for those who are watching tonight. I'll give you the floor to maybe give them advice, or you want to say something for your last words before we end this Q&A.
Sure, yeah. So the one last piece of advice that I would like to give probably anyone in their Amazon journey, whether you're, a little bit more junior or green, or whether you're more seasoned, is learn how to utilize the different reward system platforms that are out there, like Rakuten Canada, Rakuten US, the Aeroplan eStore, They have American Airlines reward stores in the US, utilize credit cards that are for specific companies like Canadian Tire, Home Depot. There's a lot of rewards that come from signing up and using those incentives. And so there's a lot of residual income points, benefits that you can get from that type of stuff. So, explore those, see what's out there. There's another one called Top Cashback that you can consider in the US. So there's a lot of them where you can, every time you purchase a good, you can make extra money, extra points on top of the money that you're already spending. So like I talked about, money management is extremely important. And, these benefits will allow you to go on free vacations, free nights at a hotel. There's a really good website, and I'm not sure if Dave mentioned it, but both me and him reference it all the time in Canada. It's called the Prince of Travel. And they go and they break down all the different benefits of credit cards, of different points programs, depending on what credit card you qualify for, what incentives you want to get. So knowing how to utilize those things can really help you go on those, fancy excursions, fancy vacations, fancy nights at a hotel, all those really shiny things that everybody wants to have, right? People always wonder how you get them. Well, there's different ways that you can maximize your benefit of using your cash to get those residual points.
Wow, that's a good one. Actually, I was just about to share to my group that I recently went to Boracay and I went to a 5-star hotel for like 3 nights, and then another hotel right by the Action. It's a 4-star hotel with like I had a suite for 4 nights, all for free because of the credit card I used from sourcing via Amazon, right? Like those are the beautiful, like really amazing rewards that you can get by just sourcing a lot of product, and you can enjoy your life. And those pictures that I'm sharing, and maybe I'm gonna share it with you guys in this group, are all because of the freebies that I got from Amazon selling. So Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your Amazon journey to us, for giving us a lot of tips. I hope that all of you who are watching and will be watching this replay will going to actually really deep dive into what Nicole said. There's a lot of golden nuggets in here that she's mentioning. A lot of them actually are something different from what I know. So deep dive into that as well. Do your own research, learn from what she's saying. And as you know, she's a living testament that Amazon selling, specifically arbitrage, work. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. Have a good evening.
Oh, thank you, Monique. That's so sweet.
Thank you.